Alrighty, so what's going on? Streaming from the computer again. I'm not set up the studio, but today we're going to be talking about lots of light equipment. So, what I have here, and excuse the echo, if it's too bad, maybe I won't save this live, but it is what I have right now to work with. So, we're going to be talking about my Leica camera collection, not all of them. So, we're just going to show you guys right over here. We're going to be talking about Leica M system digital. We're going to be talking about the Deluxe, which is a camera that was introduced not too long ago. We are going to be talking about the Q line. I own the Q3 and the Q343, and I used to own the Q2 before. We're going to be talking about the SL3 system. Also, we're going to be talking about film cameras, Leica M6. And what else? Am I missing something here? Oh, and of course, we're going to be talking about the Leica MD system. I own the the M10D, and I own the M11D. So for those that want to know a little bit more about Leica cameras, and guys, if you're there in the chat, let me know if the sound is too bad, too echoey. It is what it is right now. I don't have the studio set up, and trying to do this video for you guys. Now, the question about Leicas have been a question that I've been getting pretty often, right? So people want to know which one is the best Leica camera to get, and Leica right now has a lot of options to choose from, and also a lot of options to choose from different price point, which is something good because Leica was for a while a very expensive camera line, although still, a premium expensive camera line. Right now, we have some options like the Deluxe A, which are going to be at around $1,500. Now, let's actually start talking about, I want to start talking about film cameras, and then from there, we go to mirrorless. And, I started photography shooting film. And when I shot photography with film, I shot with my dad's camera. And one of the cameras that I shot with for a long time was the Canon A1, the EA1, and I still have a camera somewhere. So that was a camera that I had for a long time and shot a lot of rolls of film, and it still works until this day. So that was my first experience with photography. I was probably 6, 7 years old, something like that. And I shot with films until digital cameras. Now, I actually embraced one of my first digital camera was a Sony camera. I don't even remember the name, but it had those purple memory sticks cars. Some of you remember that. So that's how I, got into digital. So the moment that I started shooting digital and realized that I can grab a car, dump it on my computer, and skip the lab, honestly, I never looked back to film until a few years ago that I decided to start shooting film. Now, why is that? Well, I mean, film these days is not cheap, and buying the film, developing the film, scanning the film, you're talking about for 36 exposure, more or less, a roll of film average could cost you, depending what you get and where you get it, $15 maybe to develop it, around $15, $17, depending where you develop, maybe more, maybe less. And the scanning also, depending the quality of the scanning, you're talking about another $15 to $20 just to scan it, depending the resolution. So for 36 exposure, do the math, 30, it could actually run you over $50 just for 36 exposure. And do you know that, that when shooting film, most film cameras don't have a way to preview, what the lens see. So if you're going to be out of focus, you're going to find out after you develop and scan that film. Now, for that reason alone, I think it was a good excuse for myself to embrace digital photography, even though digital photography did not give me the same, put through as my film cameras at that time, because the quality wasn't that great, the resolution wasn't that great, but the convenience of shooting, making mistakes, and experimenting without the financial aspect, was something that I never looked back. So the film camera of choice that I have right now is going to be the Leica M6. And the reason why I landed with this camera is because I bought it pretty much brand new. This one is a reissue, and I bought it from someone that definitely did not want the camera for half of the price of what this camera goes for right now. So I believe I paid $2,800 for this camera or something like that. So, and this one is the reissue. So I was looking for I was looking for an M6, the M6, the original one, but this one has some improvements. The light meter seems to be a little bit better. I really love shooting with this camera. So right now, this camera, it's treated as kind of like dessert. I just have it from time to time, and I like to experiment with some rolls of films. And a lot of the time, if I'm going to travel, that's when I am going to be bringing my Leica M6 most of the time. I don't use it anymore for street photography film. It's not what I'm into this day. So that brings us to my digital cameras that I'll be showing today. So like I mentioned before, we're going to be talking about the Deluxe A. We're going to be talking about the M11 monochrome. This one, is my go-to camera. And let me know if you guys hear my voice pretty good or if it's low. Just let me know in the chat. We're going to be talking about the Leica M11D. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the Q line. I have the Q3 and the Q43, which is the newest camera that Leica released, which is this one right over here. We're going to talk a little bit about my brand of camera straps. I've been making straps for quite some time. We're going to be talking about the Leica SL3 and the OG Leica OG. I mean, it's new, the Q3. So I am going to start talking about by telling you guys what I feel about the Deluxe 8. And I am an ex-owner of a Deluxe 7. So when I got the Deluxe 7 was maybe, 6 years ago or so. And to be honest with you, I did not like that camera. Even though the Deluxe 7 and the Deluxe 8 are very similar in many ways, at the same time, these cameras are going to be very different in the way they operate and in the speedy way that the Deluxe 8 has now mimicked some of the other Leica cameras, newer modern Leica cameras. So why would I want to recommend this camera? Why would someone want to pick up a camera that has a micro four thirds sensor, 17 megapixels, effective megapixels, because the sensor is actually 21, but the lens crops into the sensor a little bit. So effectively you have 17 megapixel. And when talking about a camera with 17 megapixels in 2024, it just feels little, right? But this camera offers, something that not a lot of cameras are offering today. And yes, there are going to be people referring to some of the Sony cameras, Olympus cameras. But when it comes to, the Leica modern experience of shooting, this camera kind of like has it all. It has the brand new menus. It operates the same way. The interface is very familiar to, an M body, for example. Here you go, they look pretty much the same. And swapping from one camera to the other, even a film camera, to me, that's very important. The experience is very seamless. And this is a camera that I've been using those days that I don't want to lug something really heavy. Maybe I go out at night. And one of the reasons why this may be my go-to camera for night shooting is because this camera comes with a little flash. And that flash is actually really powerful. Now, this is going to be a live video, so I'm not going to be plugging in any additional footage until I get my studio. But I just want to get this out of my chest because, it's a very common question, which Leica camera to get. So the Deluxe A coming at $1,500. It's a camera that has video specs, but I'm going to be very honest with you. You're not getting this camera for videos. I think for video, this camera is very weak when it comes to video, but when it comes to photography, this one is going to be a great choice. Now, the autofocus of this camera, once again, it's not going to be on par, for example, like an RX100 Mark 7 or ZV-1. Those cameras are compact, but they have a 1-inch sensor. So when it comes to depth of field, you are going to get something much closer to a full frame camera in here, because we're talking about a micro four thirds. Even though micro four thirds is even smaller than APS-C, it is not as small as a 1-inch sensor. For that reason alone, I'd much rather shoot 17 megapixel than 20 megapixel 1-inch sensor. And to be honest with you, this camera has a pretty good lens. It's not going to be razor sharp, but it is going to be sharp enough for, what it is. So it goes from f1.7 all the way to f16, and the lens is equivalent to a 24 to 75 millimeter. And I think that this is the beauty and power of this camera, because you can get all that reach and get amazing images, great image quality. And you can actually go to voice is good, thank you, Nick. And you can actually go to one of the videos that I made regarding this camera, where I even listed some of my DNGs, so you can explore this camera. I use this camera for portrait as well. Very good, shooting at the 75 millimeter. And then at a 75 millimeter, it jumps to f2.8 as the widest aperture, when you're in the longer end of the lens. So once again, operation of this camera, amazing. Battery life, amazing. Really good. I actually can go a whole day with this camera with one single battery, something that I cannot do with my Ricoh GR3, for example, or the RX100, or even the 1X1R Mark II, which is a full frame camera that has a very tiny battery. So I think, to sum it up, you may want to get this camera, number one, because it has a great image quality, great color. You're not getting the Leica optical quality with this camera, and I gotta say that. This is not a camera that's going to give you a Summilux, or Summicron type of rendering, but it is a camera that is going to give you a very filmic, rendition, and that is because the lens is not overly sharp like an Apple lens. And again, at 17 megapixels, you will be able to print 24 by 36, no problem. And I actually have printed images, not that big, but I printed, I believe it was 17 by 24. That I print about 26 by 36, 24 by 36. You're gonna be able to print images here, no problem. And I think that sometimes people get a little bit scared about the resolution size, because when you're talking about a camera with a fixed lens, let's say a 30 millimeter or 28, yes, 17 may be kind of like too risky. But when you can actually zoom in camera optically, it's a completely different story, because you're not gonna have to crop at all. You will be zooming in up to 75 millimeters and keep the 17 megapixel of resolution. So this camera, for me, it's a great backup camera. I can shoot black and white, or I can shoot color, because it has the Leica looks, and the high contrast black and white monochrome is the one that I use and set it on the screen. It doesn't have a tilt screen. That's not bothering me, but it does have an EVF, and the EVF is actually pretty good, So this EVF has good resolution, and I forgot what the resolution is. I don't mind too much about the resolution either. As long as I could do the framing, I'm pretty good with it. Yep. So great quality. Shutter control is going to be at the top, like all the Leica cameras. And it's very similar to the layout of a Leica Q3, and we go and show you that in just a moment. But again, $1,500, gets you in the Leica ecosystem. Once again, you're not getting the Leica Summilux or Summicron optical image quality. However, a lot of the times you would have to actually put one shot next to the other and pixel peep to really determine if it was shot with a full frame sensor or not. So yeah, this is it. I mean, it is portable enough, and it's not a camera that's going to fit in your jeans pocket, for example. But it is a camera that it will fit in a jacket, and it will fit in a small bag. Now, let's actually jump into my next camera. Which one would it be the next camera that I would like to discuss? And I think I'm going to discuss them by price point first. So we're going to move on to the Leica Q3. So here we have the Leica Q3. And the reason why I own this camera is because the lens is a little bit dirty there. It gives me those weird bands in the back. But anyway, so the reason why I got the Leica Q3 is because I own the Leica Q2, and I also own the Leica Q2 Reporter. And I really love the experience shooting with that camera. And those were 28 millimeters, just like the first Leica Q. Now, if we tour the camera around, you're going to realize that between the Leica Q3 and the Leica Deluxe, we have a very similar layout. They look similar or identical from the top of the camera, and even when you show the camera from the back, they are going to look pretty much the same, right? Now, a lot of people have been calling the Leica Deluxe a mini Q3. Spoiler alert, it's not a Q at all. It doesn't have the Q image quality. It doesn't have the Q processing power. It doesn't have the Q price point. It doesn't have the Q build quality, although the Deluxe 8 is built really solid. And it is built in China, that camera, the Deluxe 8. Now, this one is built in Germany. Do I care? No, I don't care as long as the quality is there. Really don't care where the camera is built. And I could understand how this camera, the Deluxe 8, had to be made elsewhere for that price to come down. Now, there are going to be people saying that Deluxe 8 uses old technology. It does use the core from the Deluxe 7, but it uses the whole refinement and menus and tap and all that stuff from modern Q cameras. So back to the Q. So why would someone consider this camera? And I think that this camera is going to be a particular camera, and it is a camera that may actually make a lot of people fall in love with the camera and with Leica. And it could also be a camera that may make a lot of people dislike the Q line. Because if you're a portrait photographer, this is not the camera that I would recommend at all. If you're someone that shoots product photography, maybe it's not the camera that I would recommend. If you're someone that shoots wedding, I can recommend this camera as the only camera for you to bring at a gig, or two Qs, three. This one is a camera for someone that needs to add a lot of context to their photos. What I mean by this is that street photography. I made a video about the Leica Q3, and I call this camera kind of like the best option, built-in, lens solder welded to the body for street photography with autofocus. Now, yes, there are going to be a lot of people saying, well, there are a lot of cameras that are better and you could put better setups, yourself. That is correct. You could probably build something way better for less from Sony, from Nikon, and Fuji and other brands, but you're not going to find any other camera with a lens that has the manual performance of an M lens. And why I say this? Because when it comes to street photography, the way that I approach street photography is by zone focus, meaning you pick an aperture, you pick a shutter speed, and set up the ISO and auto, and you go to town. And why is that? Because any camera that would have autofocus, you do run the risk in very fast pace, and you should see the way that myself and some of my friends approach street photography. It's just very, very fast and harsh, specifically when we are in New York and hunting for the scene or trying to capture something and run away really quick. Relying on autofocus is something that I tried always, and I always continue to fail, because you do have to kind of like either tap or, you got to tell the camera what you are focusing. And with zone focus, the only thing you gauge is going to be the aperture, and you are going to gauge this distance. So this lens has the distance just like any other manual lens would have. And I'll show you a manual lens right here. This is Summicron version 4. So you can see these lenses operate the same way. So this camera can shoot in autofocus, or it can shoot in manual focus. And the manual focus performance, in my opinion, for my test is pretty fair, especially because I dial my aperture to f11. So, gauging your distance, dialing your distance to whatever, distance you want to be in proximity of the action, would always ensure that you have a shot, in perfect focus. So for that reason alone, because it is a great autofocus camera, again, does not have the performance of those, Canon and Sony cameras that almost never miss focus. But those cameras may miss focus in some street photography situation when you just, whip the camera, really quick, boom, and the camera needs some time to, determine where you're focusing. But yeah, with this one, the Q line, you get everything. You get the autofocus performance, you get the manual performance of a true manual Leica camera, which is one of the reasons why I like it a lot. And you also get, flash, capabilities. This camera, I believe, it sings at 180 flash, although I'm not shooting flash, these days anymore. And it does have a leaf shutter. That's another thing that I like it a lot. Leaf shutters are very silent, and they go up to 1,000 of a second. So from there on, you'll engage in electronic, which it goes all the way up to 16,000 of a second. So that is actually good, because you will never have to need an ND filter, and this camera can actually shoot very fast at f1.7, as you see right there. And the way it focuses, it has a 90-degree throw, Again, like a manual lens, so I really like it. Now, another reason why I like this camera a lot for street photography, and the only reason why I sold my Q2, because the Q2 was glued to me for a long time, is because the tilt screen. Now, a lot of people are, a lot of people actually dislike the fact that this camera had a tilt screen. And to each his own, whatever floats your boat. But for me, shooting from the hip down is something that I do a lot. And you can check my Instagram at Gaston Shutters, also on Thread. You're gonna see that most of my pictures are taking very, very low, and usually I shoot like that, from the bottom up. And with my M bodies, I go down on the floor. But with this camera, I don't have to go down on the floor. I just lower the camera with one of my long straps. We'll talk about some of the straps. This one is actually a neck one, but I do have also long straps. I'll crown on Instagram. And, by hoisting the camera from the strap, I aim. And a lot of the time, that's also a way to be more kind of like concealed. I'm on the action and not spook the subject, for example. So Q3, really good. Now, this camera also shoots at 60 megapixel, 36 megapixels, and 18 megapixel. And that is actually great because it would allow you to crop down from 28 to an equivalent field of view. Of course, the compression and the distortion still going to be a 28 millimeter, but it allows you to crop down without losing a lot of resolution because you have 60 megapixels. So for that reason alone, when it comes to street photography or anything that would entail environmental fixed lens camera, manual performance, I cannot think about a better camera than this one. I mean, there may be other cameras unless, and again, we're talking about fixed, not a camera that you can build yourself because, but Leica pretty much doesn't have a competition when it comes to something specifically like this. And kind of like blows my mind that no other camera company attempted something like this. Now, people compare this camera with a Fuji X100 and cannot even compare. That camera, the lens, first of all, is way, in my opinion, inferior optically. I mean, in my opinion, it is way inferior, in my opinion. It is a 35, which is, it appeals more to me. And I've done a review about the X100 because I own the camera. When it comes to optics, this lens is as good as it gets. Probably one of the best 20 millimeter lenses that I ever shot. Yes, that great, that good. And whether you should color it black and white, Leica Q3 is where it's at. Now, Leica has fixed all the quirks. This camera was a little problematic at launch, but right now, all the problems seems to be gone. No more freezes, no more hangups. And by the way, Leica released a bunch of firmware updates for M bodies, and I believe Q as well today. So go check him out, update him. So performance-wise, really, really good. All right, so now from the Leica Q3, we would have to go and talk about the SL line. And we're going to come to the M line digital in just a moment. But let's actually talk about the SL line. Leica SL3. One of the reasons why I never liked the SL line is because I always consider the SL body is a little bit too big, although it's not much bigger than this. But I feel that this one is kind of like in line with what I'm used to, and what I'm used to are cameras from Sony A7R4, A7R3, A7R5. Those are the cameras that I shot for a long time. I shot Sony for over 14 years now. So Sony was kind of like, I started with Sony digitally and I stuck to Sony. And I still shoot with Sony cameras because I love them. I have a lot of lenses. Got to mention that my favorite Sony camera right now is the Sony A7CR. And that is the one that is a jack of all trades, right? But again, Leica is where it's at for me in terms of cameras that give me that, I don't know, it's so fun to shoot with Leica camera, guys. And again, these cameras are not superior, not better than any other camera. But they are cameras that, I don't know, I just love shooting with this camera. And it's funny to say, one of the things that I like about Leica is the community. I met so many friends that I go visit regularly through Leica. So the community, it's just not the camera, it's the whole experience, shooting Leica, meeting people, meetups, connecting with other photographers, other street photographers. And I think, there is something to say there. Leica stores, they were so friendly. I got friends in New York, Miami, Switzerland, France. I don't know. It's just, I can't say the same about Sony or other brands. In fact, if I have to think about my approaches with other camera brands at stores and through customer service has not been great. But anyway, coming back to the technology here. And again, chat is enabled. If you have any questions, let me know. I will be checking the chat. Is it working? Yeah. So I got this camera finally because I tested it and I'm like, wow, I like it. Now, why would I get this camera having the other cameras? Well, there's one answer, and it's going to be that if I want to shoot a gig or I want to do portraits, I want to go and do the studio work. Some of you guys know, check out some of my older videos. I own a portrait studio for a long time, and I shot with a lot of lenses, telephoto lenses, portrait lenses. And with this system, I am getting I am getting the same great performance of my Leica digital cameras in a much more robust body that I can actually change lenses. And not only that, I can also use other lenses that are no Leica. As you see right here, this is a DGDN Sigma 35mm f2, which is a lens that, in my opinion, I really like it a lot. Essie, how you doing? Camera bags. I'll talk about camera bags in just a moment. So I got this lens because it's just great. This lens has that feature that I was talking about. It does have aperture ring. So for street photography, which I use this camera for street photography as well, I could treat it like a lens. Although the focusing ring is going to be infinite. It doesn't have a hard stop. But, being able just to nail my aperture and go quick, I love it. How this camera performs is really good. It's fast, great performance. Again, out of focus, it has it, but I don't use out of focus that often, to be honest with you. I may use out of focus in, very kind of like specific situations. It's just, it's so funny that I'm getting these cameras that are modern, but I use them manually. So again, to each his own. So if you're looking for a camera with the utmost, out of focus performance, probably it's not going to be Leica to begin with. Okay. And I just want to be completely transparent with you guys. I think that Leica is probably 4 or 5 years behind than everybody else when it comes to out of focus. Now the out of focus is not terrible. It is great, but it's nowhere near where it is at with some of the other brands. However, does it work? Yeah, it works really good. Specifically, if you're not going to be in a super fast pace, the focus is going to be flawless. If you're going to be at a studio, it's going to be flawless. If you're going to be steady, it's going to be flawless. I think, out of focus still struggle a little bit in the tracking mode, face detection sometimes, maybe a hit and miss. But once again, when it comes to the experience of shooting with this particular camera, the EVF is amazing. And it is going to be the one Leica camera that I could recommend for video work. It has a microphone input. It actually has a log profile. It shoots up to 8K video, although I haven't shot 8K video. I never shoot 8K video. 4K is where it's at. And it performs really, really, really good. So, I think that is, this is one of the best, hybrid cameras from Leica right now. It has the tilt screen, which I love. And this one also pull back, clears the EVF, whereas the one on the Leica Q does not pull back. Sorry, caffeine break. There you go. Now, the performance of this camera, I like it. This dial, they added this dial. I don't think there's a need for that dial, honestly. Yeah, choices. But I think that you could actually do everything with this dial, and the push option. But they wanted to add another dial there. I think it's a little bit awkward, like having the camera like this, operating everything like so, but then you have to go in the opposite direction. But again, there are workarounds I don't even use this dial. Anyway, so the camera is really good and really fast. Boot up time is really fast. Does it have? Oh, doesn't have a battery. Good, because it's charging. Let me actually put a battery from a Q. So it boots up really fast, and my daughter may come in a little bit, so I may have to cut this short, but let's go here. Sorry. On. So very fast, under maybe half of a second, something like that. Very fast boot up. I think in line with Sony cameras, so that is very important to me, specifically if you want to conserve battery life. Something that, when we talk about the M bodies that use the Maestro 3 rather than the Maestro 4 that this camera uses and the Leica Q use, we are going to see that the boot up time is more challenging. So why would you want to get this camera? Well, this is a camera for someone that wants no constraint in terms of lenses. Also, L mount, so you could put any lens that is L, for example, from Sigma. Also, Leica has an extensive line of lenses. And this is going to be the body that's going to work amazingly with M lenses adapted to the SL body. And I use it a lot like that. In fact, I use it more with M manual lenses than I use it with Leica SL lenses. I also have the SL Summicron 35 millimeters. I like it, but that lens doesn't have aperture control on the lens, and I just, don't use it much because of that. Because I need this. Again, what I've been shooting right now is just street and travel photography, and I like the fast pace of shooting. And it sounds kind of like contradicting, going manual for speed, but when you start playing around with a manual camera, like the ones that we're going to be talking about right now, M, you are going to realize that there is speed in manual, at least, in my opinion. All right, so let me show you my go-to body, okay? Once again, this is my Leica, and let me show you how I configure this camera. So this is my Leica M11 monochrome. I had this camera since this camera was released, and this is the Apple 35. I've been raving about this lens for a while, guys. This is my setup. This is my go-to setup. If I would have to sell everything and keep one camera, this would be the camera that I will keep, and I'll be extremely happy. Monochrome sensor, 60 megapixel, tri-resolution, 35 millimeter Apple. That's all I need. Now, the camera strap that you see right here, once again, Crown. This is my own brand of camera straps, and this one is the Street Photography Classic Rope. Strap for street photography. Yeah, these ones are very sloppy, and this one is the one that I have patented, so I have to kind of like hide the feature that I cannot talk about, but we'll be talking about that feature very soon. But anyway, so this camera right here is everything for me. And I was telling you guys that why, for me, manual is speed. Once again, I dial this to F8, F11, dial the distance, let's say to 3 meters. And all I have to do is gauge that distance, fire, and I'm done. I am capturing the image. I am capturing the image very sharp. Yes, you could do that with any mirrorless camera, but you don't have that manual control. Sometimes you got to go here or there. Not the same. This thing is very, very easy. So for that reason alone, I just don't take chances, and this is what it works for me the most. So the Leica M11 monochrome also has insane ISO performance. This camera can be pushed all the way to ISO 200,000. Of course, I wouldn't recommend you shooting ISO 200,000, but if you have to, yes, you're going to get a grainy image, but you're going to get the best image at 200 ISO that you have ever seen. And that is amazing. That is just ridiculous. So you don't have to worry about flash with this camera ever, because honestly, that is something that not even need in this camera. And that's one of the reasons why I like it, whether it is night, daytime, this camera just performs every single time. Once again, it has the hybrid shutter. This one is a mechanical shutter, just like the one on the SL3. So this shutter goes to 1/4,000 of a second, and then from there up to 16,000 mechanical. So BK Chris said, yes, M10M shooter here, monochrome for the win. Yeah, guys. So why do I have this camera case? Well, the unthinkable happened. I dropped my camera and scraped it at the bottom. So yeah, I think that if I could protect it a little bit, I would do so. And yeah, this seems to do, and actually gives me better leverage. I really like it. It's the only camera that I have with a case, and this one is good. I'm actually working on a play with grip that's going to be coming out under my brand Crown for the Leica M11, by the way. But anyway, so this is my setup of choice. My photography is black and white these days, so this one does the job. Why would you want to choose a black and white camera? Well, first of all, you got to embrace black and white. So, that's one thing. There's no color. It requires some commitment there. But also, if you're looking for something different, these days everybody shoots in color. Film shooting in color. So, I don't know. I just love it. I just love black and white photography. It's just simple. Simplistic. Now, the one thing that you're going to notice is that with these files, the DNGs are going to require some work. Whereas the JPEGs out of the monochrome are pretty much, ready to go. If you choose the one that I like is the high contrast black and white. That's the one that I choose. And in all my cameras, whether they're color or black and white, that's the preview that I have on the back of the screen. Let me show you here. If I turn this Leica Q3 here, oh, I removed the battery. Let's see this one. Oh, and this one is dead. Let me just steal the battery from this one. Guys, I moved to this place that I'm here right now, and my chargers and everything is still in boxes, so my cameras are dying. You see, the rear display is in black and white. So I choose the JPEG high contrast, whether the camera is color or monochrome. So Leica M monochrome, my daily driver for the reasons that I mentioned before. Manual M for the reasons that I mentioned before. Fast-paced, and I love it. And the reason why I chose this lens, even though I also have the Summicron, the non-Apple version, which is this one, the Summicron goes all the way down to, of course, f2 is the aperture, but it goes all the way down to minimum focusing distance 0.3. 0.3. And that is very important because at 0.3 and f2, I could actually shoot portrait. I can come close enough without distorting too much, like a 28, get a nice depth of field, background separation, blurry background, and get a super uberly crispy image. And that's what I like about shooting with. That's why I chose the monochrome as the one lens to stay here. It is not cheap, but it is, in my opinion, kind of like one of the best options, at least for myself. We all different, but it's one of the best options for me because, I could treat this lens as a 50 millimeter, by coming closer a little bit more, whereas the conventional Summicron goes up to 0.7, okay? More than double the distance, further away than this one. So it's pretty impressive. So, 35 wide enough without too much distortion, but also come close and you get a nice, tight composition for portrait or product photography, whatever the case may be. Now, let's actually talk before we jump on to one of the latest cameras that I got. We're going to talk about the Leica M11D. Why? Why in this world would I get this camera? That's a good question. So I got the Leica M11D because I own the Leica M10D. And the Leica M10D, I love everything about the camera, but it has a couple of things that, I wish they did better, and this camera does. The one thing is going to be the battery life. The battery life on the Leica M10D is not that great, and you got to carry a bunch of batteries with you at all time. No problem. The Leica M10D has the bottom plate. A lot of people rave about the bottom plate. I honestly like the fast, operation of the camera. Just remove the battery quick. I don't have to fiddle with a plate. My M11 has the bottom plate. My M6, I'm sorry, has the bottom plate. It doesn't bother me for a film camera, but whatever the case may be. So I figure 60 megapixels what I'm shooting right now. I could go with this camera now, one lens at 35, crop the crap out of it without being penalized in the resolution department, whereas the M10D has a sensor of 24 megapixel, which is plenty anyway. And I thought that the M11D was going to be everything I wanted, but to be honest with you, I started missing my M10D, and I've been shooting with my M10D. Although I love this camera, and it's the camera that I was using today. It's kind of like the walking around. It's not a camera that I'm going to use to shoot from the bottom up. It's not going to be my street photography, hardcore running and gunning camera, because I do use the screen a lot to compose. I just, take advantage of the tools that I have in front of me and what technology has to offer. And yes, a lot of the time having a screen and, just aiming at the composition like that without me having to dive all the way on the ground, it's a plus. Just use it. I know that there are a lot of purists that, they want you to be as uncomfortable as possible. I'm the opposite. The more you can assist me to minimize the pain in my back, the better it is. So this one is a camera that I will wear on my neck and, for walks and things like that. Great camera. And it is a camera that I travel with as a backup. So my last trip, I actually traveled with this camera and with the Leica M11 monochrome. So, if something happened to the monochrome, well, I have this one, same sensor. I can shoot color and then convert to black and white, and I can use all the lenses that I have. Operation is the same, and it doesn't have a screen. Now let's talk about not having a screen, because this is pretty much everything that separates this camera to a Leica M11P, because this camera is going to use the same guts, and I also own the M11P as well. So not having a screen is it's kind of like shooting like this. This is the M6, this is the M11D, but minus paying for film, minus paying for developing and scanning. So I think, if you're a Leica shooter and you're really into the Leica experience, this is it's another experience for digital. And I know that there are a lot of people that would love to bash people that, choose to make this decision, stupid decisions like I did. They're not stupid, but it is good. I'm, heavily invested in photography. It's what I do daily. And to kind of like get to, test different things really excites me. Yes, gear excites me. So very good piece of equipment. And also it'll keep you realizing that when you don't have a screen or a proper electronic viewfinder, a lot of the times we take things for granted, and this camera kind of like grounds me back to, oh man, you look at that, look at the framing, a little bit tilted. Of course, we don't have the level, we don't have the screen. So it is something that, it is a system that will continue to, make you pay more attention. And of course, you don't have to shell out the money that you have to shell out for this camera to do that. But it is a fun experience, guys. So I think that Leica nailed it, and I think that the Leica M11D is going to be even more popular than the Leica M10D. However, if I would have to choose after owning both cameras, I think that I would try to find a Leica M10D. The Leica M10D has that thumb rest that looks like the film forward lever. That is, it doesn't do anything, but it assists as a thumb rest. I like that because if you want to put an EVF for some reason, let's say you want to shoot with a close focus distance lens, the only way that you're going to be able to do that is with a VisoFlex or using the app as a monitor, because otherwise this rangefinder is going to cap at 0.7 meters. So you will need some sort of external assistant with this camera. And I think that even if you get this camera as your only camera, you get the VisoFlex, I mean, you're good. You're good, because if you have to go closer to than 0.7 meters, you can do that with a VisoFlex. So yes, this could be someone's only camera. Okay, and the VisoFlex also tilts, so you could also go down and look through the VisoFlex. But again, to me, it's not a street. It's not my preferred tool for street photography, and it doesn't mean that you cannot do it. It's just, for me, it's not it. For me, it's the Leica M11 monochrome. But again, amazing camera, guys. Now let's talk about the Leica Q3 43. All right, so I got this camera the day of the launch. Actually, I went to New York. I picked it up at Leica New York. Thank you guys there in New York City for always taking care of my requests. Appreciate it so much. And of course, I pay for all of them. Very interesting camera. But I want to actually address some of the comments here first. Sorry, I'm not ignoring you guys. So Nick is asking me, hi, which is better, 35 or 50 millimeter Apo, Summicron M or Leica Q3 43 to go buy an M11 with the Apo 35 or Q3 43? Ooh, all right. So that is a good question. And it's a question that's going to make me think a little bit, because it is actually a really good question. So Nick is actually proposing two things, getting a Leica Q3 43 or getting an M11 body with a Summicron. Now let's put it into perspective. If you would actually go and buy everything brand new, because I bought the lens used, okay? If you would buy this lens brand new, I think you're talking about $9,000 for the lens. Then with tax comes up to that, $9,000. And the body is gonna cost you another $9,500, depending which camera you get. Either it's the monochrome. So you will be spending more than double than going this way. But you could change lenses here. You cannot change the lenses here. So if you want to die with one lens, I think the answer is very simple. 43. But 43 is not as wide as 35. I think it's closer to 50, right? So, and I'm going to talk about the 43 right now. In my opinion, if fonts weren't a problem, I would actually go with this. Why? I may want to get a 75 for portrait. I may want to get a 21 for architectural, and which I do, and kind of like I travel with that kit a lot. This one is going to be more flexible, and you're going to buy once and you're going to forget it. That's it. These lenses hold their value pretty good. And in my opinion, where it's at for me is on the 35 Apple. I own the 50 Apple. Now, the 50 Apple is an older design. It's not a new design like the 35 Apple. It has a minimum focusing distance of 0.7 meters. So, again, yes, 50. Can you get closer? No, you cannot get closer. 0.7 is going to be where it's going to cap, unless, no, that's it. Yeah, that's it. It's 0.7 meter. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, with a 43, if you're in between 35 and 50, then I tell you the 43 is a deal. $6,800 more or less for the camera. And I'll be talking about this camera, but I want to read a little bit of your comments right now. So voice is good. Okay, thank you. Hi, what camera bag do you use? Camera bags. I use the Nomadic Peter McKinnon, I think it's called. It's it has 3 slots like this big, and it fits a lot of stuff. And I use Overworth, the M11 bag. Love that bag. Those are the 2 bags that I use. The Overworth is the one that I use on my daily commute, on my daily walking around, and the Overworth is the one that I use for when I travel and I don't know if it's going to be raining, snowing. That's the one I carry. Has zipper, is weather seal. Love that camera bag. So Nomadic and Overworth M11 bag. I also have the SL medium as well from Overworth. If I want to, pack more gear, I would actually carry that Overworth. But for running and gunning, soaking gear, I feel safer with the Nomadic. Love that bag. Love it. All right, so BK Chris says, yes, M11, M10 monochrome shooter here, monochrome for the win. Sorry, what brand is the half case? Looks super slim compared to the Leica version. It is the Leica version. This is the Leica version. Leica logo right there. It is the Leica version. So that's that. How do you deal with purple green fringing on Leica lenses, even when I'm using an Noctilux, but I still get heavy purple fringe? Well, Noctilux. Okay, you're talking about the Noctilux. This is Nguyen Daniel. The Noctilux are lenses that are fast. You got the f1.2, the f2, and the f0.95. So you're talking about, and again, I'm not an optics professional here, but the shallower the depth of field, the wider the aperture, the harder it is to narrow that, all the wavelengths of light into a single converging point. And that's where you're going to have that. Remember, none of those lenses are considered to be apo. So you are going to get a little bit of chromatic aberration, which on the Noctilux f1.2 is really bad, really, really bad. The chromatic aberration there. On the f1, probably the same. I don't own that lens, but I own the f1.2. And on the 0.95, it's a lot better for what I hear. But the lens is huge. I don't like heavy lenses. I don't own the lens. My friend Yamiko has it, shot with a lens. Beautiful rendition if you like the blurry, obliterated background. But chromatic aberration is something that you just deal with. Now, when it comes to monochrome, you don't have to deal with chromatic aberration because there's no chromatic information there. It's only luminance that the sensor captures. So it is something that you just deal with it, and you can always correct it in Lightroom most of the time. Or stop down, that's another thing. But if you stop down, where you're going to get a super fast, expensive lens. So things that for you to consider. So are you going to buy the SL3S when it comes out? No, I won't be buying an SL3S. I don't need less resolution. I just need more. Now, 60 is where it's at for me because it allows me to go out with one lens and crop a little bit more. And again, I've learned to be happy with one lens, although I own a lot of lenses. That makes no sense. But, for my photography, I just like to minimize, my options. All right, so then Nguyen and Daniel say, how do you deal with purple? Oh, I already answered that one. Pablo-san, I really enjoy listening to this live broadcast chilling, but just to be clear, your livelihood is photography, right? No, my livelihood is I'm a mechanical engineer, and I had a company. I sold my company, and I'm living off a lot of things that I'm doing to live. Photography is one of the things that I do as my passion. Sometimes it pays the bills, sometimes it doesn't. But no, photography, it's not what is paying all the bills for me, nor is YouTube. Photography is what I do, whether I make money or not, whether it rains or doesn't. It's something that I do no matter what, with no excuses, and I just do it for myself. Pretty much all the photos I take I'm my own customers. I shoot for myself and for the people that like my work. By the way, I'm doing for Art Basel here in Miami my first gallery, my first exhibition. So I'm pretty excited about that. Black and white photography, street photography in Miami. So I'll keep you guys posted. Alrighty. So Nick, okay. One more question. If I want only 28 and maybe 50, go to the M with 2 lens or 2 Q3 and oh, Nick, hold on. Let me read this. I don't have my glasses. Okay. One more question. If I want only 20 and maybe 50, go to M11 with 2 lens. Oh, with 2 lens. Or 2 Q3. Oh, okay. Okay. So if you like both focal length, would you go with a 20 lens and a 50 on an M11 body? I guess that's what you mean. And then with the Q3 and the Q343, in my opinion, you could probably also do everything with a 28 and the Q343, but you could also do everything with one M body and a 35, or a 28. You could always crop a little bit more. Again, something that people need to understand is that cropping does not bring you an equivalent of optical field of view, because the distortion is there. You're just cropping into it. The compression of a 50, it's not there when you crop. Just to give you that. So if you want to take advantage of the depth of field of a 50, the best way is to go with a 50 and with a 28. Just to get both ends. Cropping is a workaround to get you focused on the scene. But because what I do is street photography, and I like to have the context around, the subject, to me, being wide, a little bit wider is good. And that's why the 35, that's a pretty good job for me. That's that. I hope I, answer your question. Would I get a 20 and a 28 and a 43? No, I probably still choose, in that case, I will go with an SL. Get an SL and then get whatever lens you want. And if you change your mind later on, sell the lens, and then you can put whatever lens you want. Now with this, you're bound to fixed lenses camera. So, that will be the answer. Okay, so this is, and I'm murdering names. Sebastian Roy. Love your M11 35 Apple. It is my normal carry. Thank you so much. I love that setup. And then Pablo says, being live like this in front of the camera like this take a certain kind of skills. I suck, guys. So sorry about the rumbling and stuttering and things like that. But yeah, filming YouTube videos actually take me a long time. But let me know, do you guys prefer this video or do you prefer the edited version, where I can share a lot of images? And I think I could do that live too. So yeah, so that's that. So let's actually recap, guys. We've been live almost for an hour. So we have the Deluxe 8, Great companion camera. Would I call this the one camera to get? If you could, but it doesn't cut it for me. I would not go out on a trip with this camera alone, although I can. But I know what I can get from other cameras. That's the difference. So it is a great camera that if my gear will go down, I could actually finish an entire day trip vacation with this and not be too disappointed. Yes, I always like to have more resolution, but good camera, $1,500, put in the bag and use it. When you are moving around and you don't want to lug a lot of gear, really easy to pop in, pop out. I also make these finger straps, which I made them out of leather, and they're going to be listed on my website. I'm actually working on the site, and that's all you need. I feel that they're better than having it here. Really easy to remove in and out. They're made out of leather, American Horween leather, wrist stitching, and again under my brand All Crown. So if you want to order it, go on Instagram. Oh, let me just type the Instagram right here. So it's instagram.com/All Crown. I've been selling this guys through DMs. Yeah, the website is going to be up soon, but again, I'm in one-man band for now, and most of my time goes to manufacture the straps and ship them, and then go and shoot more. So that's that. So great camera, the Deluxe A, small, compact, 17 megapixel, micro four third. It has a zoom lens, great for everything. Great little camera, has a flash. Q line, the Q3 line, the Q3 and the Q3 are amazing options. I think that Leica has nailed it with these two cameras. I would have actually wished that Leica made it 35, because that would have been the one camera that I would have taken everywhere. Probably that one camera in the Deluxe. But again, it's good to be wider. And I shoot even wider than 28. 21 millimeter is where it's at for me for architecture. Anything than that, I think, is way too much distortion for my personal way of shooting. So I've done a series of the Oculus in a year. You can check it out on my Instagram. My personal is Gaston Shutters. Just put that here. You guys know that, right? So Instagram.com/Gaston Shutters. That's my personal photography right there. And the other one is the camera straps. So you can see some of the 21 millimeter photography that I did of the Oculus. But the 28, yeah, it's great for environmental architecture, and this lens is overly sharp. Now, one thing that I forgot to mention of the Q343 is that this is an Apple lens. So this lens is going to be much more corrected than the one on the 28 millimeters. So if chromatic aberration, someone mentioned there, is a problem, this lens, clean, is super clean, super sharp. Amazing lens. I think that the 28 and the 43 are the sharpest out of focus lenses from Leica that I've seen, including SL. I mean, the Apple SLs are also great, but again, these are Apple Leica quality, great optics. Wow, incredible. And these cameras are actually light. Very, very good. I love it. And if I would have to choose one of the Q cameras because of the way I shoot, I don't know. I think it's the 28, but the more I shoot with the 43, I'm confused. Because with the 43, I can back off a little bit and kind of get a similar, composition as my 35. But with this one, I can be closer and fit more. So it's hard for me to decide. But yeah, 28 is good. One of the things that I notice is with a 28 millimeter Leica Q3, sometimes I end up cropping too much just to focus on the specific part of the action. But again, that is an added benefit because you don't have to be as precise. And specifically when it comes to, shooting fast pace, being able to kind of like fix a later, why not? You have the bandwidth with a 28. But the 43 is amazing. More specifically, if you're going to be doing a lot of portrait, product photography, and you want to get the best of both worlds, I think the 43, the 43 does it. Does it for me. And again, it's a camera that can be treated as a manual Leica camera. Once you lock that tab there, you're out of focus, and once you release it, you gain control. So really easy to switch from manual focus. So Then we talked about my go-to camera, which is the Leica M11 monochrome. I love it. The Leica M10 monochrome is also a great camera, but this one has better ISO performance, better battery life. I believe it has the faster processor as well, because the other one was the Maestro 2, if I'm not mistaken. This is the Maestro 3, which I wish it was the Maestro 4 because it's way faster. Now, the one thing about the M bodies, the M11 line, they take kind of like a little while to start up, about 3 seconds sometimes. That's just too long, just too long. Maestro 4 on the SL and Q, boom, they turn on really quick. Apple lens, I mean, expensive, but if you can get one, snatch one at a really good price, this lens will never disappoint. Never, never, never. Best lens I own. Love it. And what else? S-Align. S-Align is for those photographers that shoot a lot of gigs, that shoot concerts, weddings, photographers that need to change, focal length, that need, lenses that go beyond 135, because I believe for M, what's more than, I think 135 is where it caps on M lenses. Maybe I'm wrong. But if you want to shoot 200 and beyond, this is going to be the setup. Also, you have lenses from other third-party manufacturer such as Sigma that you can use here, and Sigma's been killing it with their lenses. The DGDN line, very, very good. Cam Mackey, hey, what's up, man? How you doing? Love your channel as well. So, and then we have the film. The film Leicas, the M6. It's where it's at for me these days when it comes to Leica M bodies, and this one performs really good. If you're looking for Leica M6 vintage, the older one, or this one will have some added benefits plus the warranty, and that's the reason why I jumped in and I got it for $2,800. I believe I paid for this camera, and I believe it goes for $5,000 or something. So yeah, and brand new. So I love this camera. So Portra 400, Portra 160, that's pretty much what I shoot in here. And this is kind of like one of the lenses that's being stocked to this camera. It's this one and also a Nikkor f1.4 from 1950. That's the lens that I love to shoot in this body. But this one is the version 4 Summicron. I believe it's version 4. Really nice, it's a pre-spherical lens, but it has a really good rendition. Lens is very light. I like the focusing. The coating is not the modern coating, as you can see, but it's good. I got it in good condition. Bought it from Japan. I bought all my lenses from Japan on eBay and at Leica stores. So Japanese have great standards. Something that is not good when you get it doesn't have a single scratch. So that's that. So yeah, this is a camera that I use kind of like eating dessert. I don't eat a lot of dessert, but when I eat dessert, I like to eat something good. Well, I mean, when I shoot film, I want to shoot film with a very reliable camera. This one is as reliable as it gets, and love it. And what else? So we talk. Oh, and last but not least, a new kid on the block, the Leica M11D, man. I mean, yeah. For those that want to own a camera without screen, this is the one, digital. And honestly, this camera will be a camera that may allow you to realize that you're not the photographer that you thought you were. If you're shooting, through EBFs and through screens, the moment you shoot with something like this and you review your pictures, it will send you back to recalibrate a lot of things of your photography. Of course, if you shoot film, yeah, you keep that, that steady, pace of paying attention. But, for someone that shoots fast-paced, this one makes you realize that, oh, we don't have IBIS. We got to be super stable. Framing, I don't have the lever here. Love it. It's a camera that makes me realize that there is still a lot to learn and a lot to, fine-tune. Love it. Love it for, everyday carry. Love it for shooting stuff with a family. Love it for fun. Love it for improving my photography. Really good camera. But once again, like I mentioned before, I would actually stick to the M10D, which I didn't bring it, but I have it. All right, so what else? Cam Mackey says, did you end up picking up the Q3 Yeah, buddy, here it is. Q3 I filmed the review. I have to edit it. I picked it up the day of the release. And like I was saying before, I really enjoy this camera for what this camera has to offer. I think 43, it's a pretty original focal length for me. I've shot with 40. I know that there are some other brands that make 43. I never shot with a 43. I mean, between 40 and 43, I don't see any major difference. I do see a difference between 35 and 43, definitely, and 50 and 43. So when I started shooting with this camera, it took me a couple of days to kind of like gauge my distance to the subject. Again, I shoot street most of the time. But once I kind of like realized that I need to back up, back off a little bit more, I'm pretty much, composing like with my 35, Apple in my monochrome. So I love this camera. And the way that I find using this camera is in manual mode. I don't know, guys. I guess I got to go back and relight on autofocus, but I don't use autofocus on autofocus cameras that often. And that makes no freaking sense. So that's why I never complain about autofocus, because I just don't use it that much. Even portrait, I like to magnify the iris and make sure it's in focus manually. But that's an area where I think the autofocus of Leica cameras perform really good for steady scenes. You have a model there, and you put that crosshair in the eye, and you're gonna get good autofocus. The face detection also works good when you have a steady, not so shaky subject. And if I shoot portrait, most likely I'm gonna be at f8. So at that point, yeah, the autofocus is going to perform very well. But for street photography, I've been rocking this camera manually. I got no hiccup. Ken Mackey or Mackey, correct me if I'm wrong. I think I saw your video. I think you got it. I think I saw your video. I think you did get the camera. I love it. I love it. Love it. All right, so Daniel Gamachi, Sigma 35 f2 on my SL2. Love it. Great combo, man. So SC say, I saw another YouTube video that tested the Q3 43 focal length. It was actually 41. It could be because the the focal length of the Leica Q3, which is 28, is more of a 26. And the reason why Leica does that is for the in-camera, I guess, dewarping. I think that this is what Josh from Leica Miami told me 2 days ago when I was there. So I think it's on purpose that, because there is some correction that happens in camera. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I've been hearing. I just don't care. I just love the image quality out of the camera. I'm not too hung up on specs because I like to use the camera and I like the camera to do what I want it to do. And if I get what I want the camera to do, I'm happy. So Salar Falahayan, which one you suggest for street photography on a Leica M11 Summicron 28 or the Elmarie 28, or just to continue with my Summilux 50? Okay, so 50 for street, too tight for me. I just can't do street with 50. I have a 50 sometimes in my camera bag, but I like 28 or 35. And again, it all depends, how you approach the scene. If you want to be into the scene, part of the happening, the 20 is the way to go. If you want to be, secluded, then the 50, I guess, it works for you. So I think the focal length is going to be subject to the type of depth of field that you're looking for, the compression and the distortion, and how comfortable you are being close, because with a 28, you have to be close. So that's why 35 is between 28 and 50, and I find it, they're cutting the grass. Can you believe that? By the way, we skipped the hurricane, so yeah. So so it's really up to you, man. What I would recommend, Salar, is that you actually just check them out, and try to shoot. The thing is, like with any focal length, it's not one day of shooting with a lens. It's 3, 4, 5 months shooting with that focal length. And that's how I discovered, throughout my career, that the 35 is the lens for me. I committed myself for a bunch of months with the 20. I committed myself with the 50. And finally, I found the 35, and not just any 35, the 35 Apple to be the lens that did it for me. For that close, focusing distance that can give me a pseudo 50 millimeter if I want to come close with nice, shallow depth of field at f2. So try. All right, so Gaston, where is the cheapest place to buy film? What is the best place to develop film? I use here in Miami Palm Beach Lab. I believe I pay, don't quote me, but the last time I think I paid for 36 exposure, $14, if I'm not mistaken. And I buy film on Amazon, sometimes on eBay. Yeah, that's where I buy, you know, and I had great luck. And yes, my ex-wife just threw about 36 cans of film. Anyway, so what else? Where is the cheap? Okay, so that's that. So Matthew Fernandez, what do you think about the 24 Lux? Have not tried the lens. I do like 24, really good. I think 24 for wide angle, it's great. Um, and in my Sony days, in fact, I shoot my videos with a 24G Master, not this one because this one's on the computer. But I shoot with a 24G Master. I really like that lens. I guess the Lux is also f1.4. I love the 24 millimeter field of view. But for me, it's 21, 28, 35, 50, and 75. I could probably bypass the 50 with the Apple Summicron and go to 75. So my ideal kit today is 21, 35, 75. If I have to bring three lenses, that's what I bring. 21, 35, and 75. Skip the 28, skip the 50 altogether. And yeah, that's it. Guys, so I've been live for an hour, 11 minutes. Let me know if you want me to continue making more videos like this live, or if you like the pre-recorded, shenanigan there. I tend to struggle a little bit more live, but if you enjoy, I may be popping, probably connecting the camera and just doing more of these live videos for you guys. But guys, thank you for watching this video. And if you own a Q3 43, I have my new All Crown 43 strap. Okay, it's this one right here. You can order it through my Instagram. Scroll up, you'll see it there. You can order yours at your determined length, and I make them in 55, 50, 44, 40, 30 millimeters, and anything in between that you may want. Just inquire there through Instagram. The website should be up soon, and just didn't have a lot of time these days. Thank you for watching this video, guys, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care. And how do I close this chat now? Answering. Bye.